Hi, I'm Niemira of BGX Capital, and we are here at EDCON, and we are talking about Ethereum and blockchain. And here we are with Matthew Spoke. Hello, Matthew. You are a CEO and co-founder of Nuco and the founder of Aion.
I am, yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yes, well, glad to have you here. And yes, it's a week of marathon for the conferences for you guys. And you're talking about your new network, Aion.
Yep.
And here they're talking about scalability. And it's a very important issue. And a lot of blockchain people kind of pointing out that how Aion is actually targeting this scalability.
Sure, yeah, there's two major layers that we've been working on. We announced 2 weeks ago that we made our network live. So we have kind of an operating mainnet that people are starting to build on and interact with. We've been doing some work on the virtual machine design to make sure that we can, for one, still support anything that is a native Solidity application that would have been written for the Ethereum ecosystem, could still be ported over and run on top of the Aion network. We've got some longer term designs that our team is working on how to scale the virtual machine into what we call parallel transaction processing, so that we can identify the opportunities to parallelize transactions if they're not dependent on each other, which is a big challenge when you're dealing with on-chain transactions. But that designs, the team's doing really, really well there. There's some really cool work coming out of our VM team. So that's something we call the Aion virtual machine that's been in the works for several months now. We also just demoed earlier today at EDCON one of our implementations of our bridge design. So bridging is kind of the second type of scalability that we talk about, is this idea that, our hypothesis is the future will look like a multitude of blockchains that all need to interact with each other, and where transactions need to be able to move between one and the other. So we've been building this kind of generic bridge implementation where you can essentially write applications that can natively identify that an event has happened on another blockchain. So we demoed a piece of that today at EDCON. The biggest thing that we're using it for right now is the idea that we have a token on Ethereum, and we want to be able to prove through a smart contract on Aion that a token has been destroyed, so that we can recreate that token on the Aion side of the bridge. And over time, we're going to show that bridge design is actually a lot more generic and broad, where you can start to identify any type of pattern of state changes on any chain that's connected through an Aion bridge. So you can start to write more interesting and complex kind of cross-chain applications. So these are two of our current solutions for scalability. And then longer down the path on our roadmap, we're doing some new work on how to redesign a consensus algorithm that allows us to achieve kind of consensus on a faster and more, while maintaining decentralization, but on a much more efficient basis to do consensus.
Right. Well, for a very long time we had the blockchain. Right now we have plenty of blockchains. So one of the things you are doing at Aion is connecting all those blockchains together. How important that is going to be in the future, that that there is this kind of the connectivity between different blockchains.
I think it's extremely important. One of the things that got us to start designing Aion is the fact that the company that we used to operate was focused on building private enterprise blockchains. We helped launch the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. We still sit on the board of directors there. I'm still very much engaged in that organization. But one thing that became very, very clear through that work is that we were building thousands and thousands of different blockchains for different companies, for different industries and different countries, and all of them were very isolated and fragmented, and there was no mechanism to be able to connect the dots, so to speak. And not only within the Ethereum ecosystem, but also looking across the road at technologies that are being developed, like Hyperledger, like R3, working on Corda. There's like an innumerable number of these protocols, not only in the enterprise market, but now in the public market, right? So now we have Definity coming out. We've got Cardano's been in the works for a long time. EOS is being developed. We don't know. We don't want to pick winners and losers around which one of these protocols is going to be established at the end of the day. But I think we're getting very, very confident in saying that there will be more than one. And if there's more than one, then we have a second layer problem of how do we connect them. And that's why we've been focusing on Aion as a core design. Ironically, we are building our own network as well, and our public network actually is a crucial part of how we view interoperability scaling, because we see our public network not only acting as kind of a platform for smart contracts, but also kind of like a routing system for other blockchains that connect to it.
Yes. Well, I liked when you put everything in the 3 stages, and you called them Kilimanjaro, Denali, and Everest. So
That's right.
you're climbing the mountains.
Yeah.
What are the most urgent things that you need to really tackle right now? Like, what are the biggest challenges at this particular moment?
So we're kind of in parallel. We're working on 2 different roadmaps. We're working on, so the Kilimanjaro roadmap is the network that we just launched last week. But as you can imagine, it's a constantly evolving network. We're always kind of making updates and bug fixes to this network. To play on that mountain climbing analogy, we talk about starting a new design as the base camp, developing that design as the ascent, and then reaching the launch as the summit. So we have this analogy of kind of mountain climbing throughout a lot of our roadmap. Part of our team is working on designs for Denali right now. So we're working on the new virtual machine will come in during Denali. Part of our team is still working on designs for Kilimanjaro. For the bridge is a good example of something that we will launch on Kilimanjaro. So that's kind of how we organize ourselves in terms of what's going on to the live network today versus what's being researched for the next version of our live network. That'll come in the next kind of 9 to 12 months.
How do you stand with your competition? Like, do you have a competition in the world, and how are you placing yourself with it?
Well, I mean, conferences like EDCON are a great time when everybody gets together to talk about who's working on the same ideas. We know of many projects working on interoperability. We know of many projects working on on-chain scaling. So we find ourselves kind of in open conversation with projects on both sides of the equation. We've had really interesting conversations with projects that are specifically looking at on-chain VM scaling designs. And that's one category where maybe they're competitors, maybe there's opportunities for us to collaborate. We do a lot of collaboration with projects as often as possible. We try to avoid the discussion of competition. I think the market's a little bit too early for that. But you've got some really interesting like on-chain scaling work happening in a multitude of projects. And then on the interoperability side, we've been very open with some of our work that we've done through the Blockchain Interoperability Alliance as a group that we formed with our friends at Aion and Wanchain that are also working on solutions for interoperability, where we kind of approach the market saying we're probably better off learning from each other and getting a solution out faster rather than looking at each other as competitors. There's other projects that we're pretty good friends with the team at Cosmos, some of whom are based here in Toronto. Obviously, Polkadot has been kind of in development for a long time.
Some of those companies actually presented.
Some of them are here, of course.
The Designer Exchange.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we had some of them invited to come speak at our conference, and many of them are here at EDCON. I think, my hope is that for the next few years, at least, we can continue to keep kind of this attitude of collaboration before competition. I think the market has a long way to grow before we really need to start stepping on each other's toes. And right now, we're all just testing slightly different versions of the same hypothesis, but we have different approaches on how to test it. And hopefully at the end of this, we'll have all established, what are the best practices and smartest ways to approach these problems.
Well, I wish you the best of luck and I can see you are ready to climb the mountains.
Thank you.
And I'm sure you are going to reach those peaks. So Matthew, thank you so much once again, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.